Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Today it's time for a quick tip, and I thought I would talk about a tool that it doesn't get talked about very much. Something I use all the time and for a whole bunch of different reasons. And of course, I'm talking about the T-pin. So let's get started. So this is one of my design idea sketchbooks that you can get on my merch store. They have a number of different versions. This one has information about getting ring sizes right. There's some other ones with conversion charts, or there's one that has the Mohs scale of hardness and some different minerals associated with those different numbers. Uh, One about saw blades. There's a number of different things that are useful. But the real feature for me would be the pages inside with a dot matrix on them like this, because I am not terribly good at drawing, and that helps me to draw better pictures when I'm sketching up a design idea. Which incidentally I didn't used to do prior to doing a YouTube channel, but I realized how useful it was to me when I did that after I started trying to do that on a regular basis to keep a record of what I did. And I've really come to value having that so I can go back and revisit it if I check things out or try it again, and then I won't have to reinvent the wheel each time. So it's kind of nice to have a record. So get yourself one or two of those. I think they're useful. I don't have much of a picture today because we're going to just be talking about something mostly. And what I'm talking about, and I apologize if I'm a little nasal today, my allergies are really kind of kicking in for some reason. But I wanted to talk about these things, T-pins. So when I first was doing metalsmithing, the guy who taught me, he had these laying around. And I thought of them as macrame pins because my mom in the 1970s was into macrame, and she used all of these little T-pins to hold things in place when she's doing it. So that's how I think of them. But also, once I started metalsmithing, I thought of them as a useful tool for metalsmithing that doesn't get mentioned very often. So I have found a number of uses for these things. I think I mentioned in a video a while back that Don, the guy who taught me years ago, he used to stick these through the eraser of a pencil and create sort of a 90-degree improvised soldering pick, and that works okay for a while. It eventually starts cooking the rubber eraser on the pencil, but you can use them for that. I didn't list that as one of the things that I use them for, but that's something that some people do. One of the main things I've noticed in recent years, I got a hold of some of these ceramic blocks. They're really nice because they have a nice flat surface, I think, but they eventually crack and break. So one thing you can do if you have something that has a tendency to roll around a lot, you can use T-pins in these ceramic pads as a way to hold things in place by just poking them down. Oops, this one's getting pretty old, so let's say I wanted to keep those in place like that. Ouch. They're also useful for stabbing your finger like I just did. Hopefully you won't do that. So you keep things from moving around much on these pads, and that's useful sometimes when you have little pieces of wire that are trying to roll around. I get asked periodically, don't these get soldered to stuff? And sometimes they do a little bit, but it's usually not really a strong solder joint, and with a little pressure it'll just break off. Because I don't think it's a true solder that happens, because these need to reach a higher temperature before they'll actually solder to something else. That's my thinking about it. Somebody who's a metallurgist, let me know. So another thing that I do with these things, oftentimes I'm using a magnesia block or a Cool Tools kiln brick. I have one of those floating around here somewhere too. So these surfaces are both soft enough to where you can poke these right into them. And that's very handy in a lot of situations when you need to keep things in place. So I keep a lot of these around in case I need to hold things in place. I never use binding wire. For some reason I never tried it. But there are times when you need to hold things in place, and having these soft blocks with some of these T-pins together works really well for that kind of thing. So that's another thing that I do. Along the same note here, there are times where you have something that you want to solder together. Like let's say I want this soldered on top of this. And I don't want this to keep tipping downwards like that. I'll put it in here to be kind of a little support for this while you're soldering it on. Keep it all at the same level then, instead of having to worry about that tipping down. And if you can poke it into the pad like that, it makes it pretty stable. So I think that's kind of a useful thing to use it for sometimes. I've been using them as little scribes for years. Just when you need to make a mark on a piece of metal where you're going to cut it or something. These will scratch nicely in silver. So you have a little piece of sheet or something. You need to make a mark. Mark's great on that. So I use that all the time, and then somebody a while back goes, you know, you can just cut one of those off and stick it into a pencil, and then you have a nice scribe with a handle. And I was like, oh, I wish I remembered who told me that, because that was a good idea. And I finally got around to trying it when I was thinking about this video, and it works a charm, actually. So I'm going to cut that off. Don't use your regular soft metal wire cutters to do that. So let's put this in here. And then look at that, you got a great scribe, so you can control it a little better than just having it in a little pin in your fingertips. Thank you for whoever told me that, because that's a great tip, and I wanted to pass that on to you. So that's a useful way to use one of the T-pins. I occasionally have this issue where, let me see if I have a piece of tube. I have some tube that got pinched for some reason. A lot of times it's my students who do this. That's the excuse I'm going to make. It's my students from class who do this. They cut tubing with some wire cutters or something, or it just gets smashed by something by accident. You can use one of these T-pins to kind of pry it open, just by getting the tip in there and working it down. And that'll open your tube back up for you. At least on these little tiny tubes. The final thing that I use these for sometimes is, there comes a time now and again when you have to remove a stone from a piece. And I'm not going to do it with this one, but you need to get the bezel opened up a little bit if it has a bezel to pull that stone out. And sometimes using a T-pin allows you to be able to force the tip of that down underneath the edge of the bezel and gently start rocking it open. And work your way around. It's easier to use than a regular pin because it's got a top on it that's flat, and then you don't. It doesn't hurt your finger as much when you're doing that kind of stuff. So the initial stages of getting a stone out of a bezel when you need to size it or fix it or whatever, that's a really useful thing to have around. So. What I'm curious about, those are some of the things I use T-pins for. What do you guys use T-pins for? I'd love to hear your tricks too. I'm sure there's a million things that I haven't thought of that they could be used for in metalsmithing, because they're just a useful little shape. So let me know how you use them in the comments. I'd love to hear your tricks. All right. Okay, I hope you found that video about T-pins useful. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you'd give me a like on the video. And I think you might find it useful if you go visit my main channel page as well on YouTube here. I have 680 plus videos now, and so I do 3 per week, one on Tuesday, one on Thursday, and one on Saturday. And so there's a pretty constant stream of interesting projects and good information about metalsmithing coming out. So if you like what you see, consider subscribing to my channel. It doesn't cost anything. You can even hit the notification button and it'll let you know when I put out a new video. I wanted to thank some people. First, my patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters. They have not only provided me with some financial support, they have also created a lovely environment with a bunch of people really interested in metalsmithing. So we can all utilize each other as resources, show each other what we're working on, get advice, give advice. It's really a nice learning environment, and I appreciate that they've made it that way. So thank you, patrons. You guys are awesome. The other group I wanted to thank are my YouTube subscribers. Last I checked, I was at 29,700. I think we just might have turned 800. 29,800, let's call it. So we're real close to 30,000. So if you know anybody who might be interested in my channel, let them know about me and we can push it over that. I wanted to thank you guys for creating such a nice learning environment on my channel. People are kind in the comments. They provide advice to each other. And they tell me things that I don't know, which I appreciate because I love learning about new stuff. And they give me constructive criticism where I need it. So thanks for making it like that. That's a great place, not only for me, but for everybody. So thanks for doing that. The other thing that I wanted to thank you for were the financial contributions, the Buy Me a Coffees, the Super Thanks, the purchases from my shop, and my ebook purchases. All of those things make my channel sustainable, and I couldn't do it without your help, so thank you for that. The video description down below has information about this video, but it also has some important links. There's a link to my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea sketchbooks or some other merch that I have there. There's a link to my Patreon if you want to check out that community and whether it might be a good fit for you as well. And there's a link to my newest ebook, which is a guide to all of the videos that I did last year during 2025. I did over 170, and there's a page for each one in the book, and it allows you to link right to the video. On each page as well, there is a picture of the sketch that I drew, a picture of the final outcome, a list of materials you need to make the project, stone information if it had a stone in it. There's a difficulty rating, and there's a notes section where I put down some things that I thought about during or after the project. Would I change the way I did it if I was to redo the project? What did I learn from the project? Oftentimes I learn something new when I'm trying something new. And even if I didn't like the project, or I did like the project, and why. So it's a great way to have a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips, and a really nice way to support my channel. So consider getting one of those. You can even get all 3 years that I've done it for, 2023, 2024, and 2025, off of my merch store as well. You look for the link that has all 3 together, and you get $15 off. So that does not apply on my website itself. So go to the merch store if you want to get the better deal. All right, well, thanks in advance if you choose to do that, and thanks for watching today. Take care. Happy silversmithing.